Whether or not you start a career or you become self-sufficient, you open an online store, there will be times where you have to just stick with it and you have to be committed. And I think that's a really good lesson to be learned.
You're listening to ECOMMERCE, a Debutify podcast, your resource for one-of-a-kind insights into the world of e-commerce and business in the modern age. This is Joseph. I'll be presenting a wealth of industry knowledge from interviews with successful business people and our own state-of-the-art research. Your time is valuable, so let's go. Doron Feder, it is good to have you here in ECOMMERCE. How are you doing today? How are you feeling?
I'm good, Joseph. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. Just a little inside baseball for our audience. Doron and I have had the pleasure to meet and connect because our companies are doing some other projects along the lines. We can reveal that at some other point. So it's cool to already be acquainted and to now be able to do this recording. It's almost like a prerequisite. You know, yeah, you got to come in here on the podcast. We got to get you on here. We got to talk. I got to collect everybody. All right.
Exactly.
And with that, I guess in some small way, we're about to reveal how our relationship will factor in, because I'm going to ask you what you do, what you're up to. So our audience is smart. They'll figure it out. But with that said, tell us what you do and tell us what you're up to these days.
Sure. So I'm Doron. I'm the head of growth at AfterShip and automizely. And I'm responsible for managing all the existing growth channels for all the different products that we have, and constantly building new growth opportunities, specifically partnerships with other entities in the ecosystem, such as Debutify, for instance.
Mm-hmm. And it's funny because when I do podcast recordings, it's pretty consistent with the people that I meet. Is that we do get a lot of people who are like they're in the positions. We do get like the podcast people, we get the outreach people, we get the HR people. So we can go one of two ways. The first would be like, to tell us about AfterShip, and to a larger degree, automizely. We also want to hear about, how you got into it, but we'll get to that part maybe in a little bit. So AfterShip, this is the question that I tend to frame to people whenever we get to talk about, agency and services, which is tell us about it and tell us about the story behind it. What problem was going unsolved at the time of its formation?
Absolutely. So AfterShip is basically the solution our company grew from. It was launched in 2012 after Teddy and Andrew, who are the founders of the company, have won a global startup competition. And now Teddy was always an entrepreneur. He ran online stores selling electronics, I think, and he has struggled with the customers constantly asking about the whereabouts of their orders. So he decided to build a dedicated solution for their business to help his customers track their orders easily. And from that, grew the product that is now AfterShip, which we now integrate with over 800 different couriers to provide both store owners and their customers with automated updates on the exact whereabouts of the product, right? So even more importantly, not just the whereabouts of the product, but to know exactly where the order is going to be delivered without having to go to an external tracking page like FedEx or DHL, for example, to figure that out. Now, if you combine all of that, you get an upgraded post-purchase experience that improves trust, loyalty, and drives repeat purchases at the end of the day.
Yeah, from just my own personal experience, whenever I order something and I have to go to I think it's called like Mail 17 or something like that. Once I have to go onto that website, I think, well, all right, I might as well just write down a random number for all the information that I'm getting from this. So it certainly does go a long way to give people that level of trust when the purchase has already been made. And it reminds me too of some of my previous work in the sales department, where we would answer the call and people had already made up a lot of their minds once they had gone to the website and they ordered the product. So most of my work was actually after the order had been placed, having to email customers every couple of days, let them know that we're working on the order, let them know tracking and shipping updates. So it's rather remarkable how there's just the perception of how much energy obviously has, and a great deal of energy does have to be put into, getting the customer to convert in the first place. But it really We just don't see as much light shined on what happens after the order is placed, and an argument can be made that that's more important than anything, because people, yeah, they've ordered it, they pay their money, but that doesn't mean that the sale is final. They can get their money back. They can go to Visa. They can say, "Listen, this was not what I was expecting," and Visa go after them.
Absolutely, and you know what? It's definitely hard to get new customers, but I think people don't understand the importance of really providing a good post-purchase experience and the implication it has for the business in terms of winning repeat purchases, right? So you've already convinced someone to buy from your store, right? Now go the extra mile and make the most out of this. Create loyalty and bring them back for more. And this is really where you distinguish between different brands. You see brands that really invest in post-purchase and repeat purchases, and brands that are solely focused on winning new customers. And there's much to be gained from the post-purchase experience, no doubt.
Absolutely. We'll continue to get into it as well. I do also understand that AfterShip is part of a larger company, which is automizely. So in the same way, because again, inside baseball to our audience, I linked Doron here to the SMS episode. And so the question I asked her was like, well, SMS is part of Yotpo. So how does Yotpo fit into the bigger picture? So same question to you is, how does automizely fit into the bigger picture and the impact that it's having on the industry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So unlike SMS bump that was purchased by Yotpo, automizely or AfterShip was not purchased by automizely. Actually, AfterShip is a part of a bigger brand called automizely. And our mission at automizely is to connect the entire infrastructure of online commerce so that people can buy and sell easily online. That's our mission. And so we've currently built 7 different automation products that are all free to install and are very, very easy to set up and use. For instance, our conversion automation tool, Automizely Marketing, is over 30 different conversion tools in one app to help user generate leads and push visitors down the sales funnel. And once an order has been made, our users can use our another tool, our shipping tool, Postman, to easily generate shipping labels and get discounted rates, followed with AfterShip or tracking solution to track orders once shipped, and then manage returns if needed with our return solution. So you see how our different products really cater to one another and complement one another to really connect the entire user journey together.
Well, for the audience, it's going to help them a great deal, even to go onto the website and just to see all of the features available to them. And one thing that I think is helpful too is that it reveals, I think, a lot of what people might not realize is going to be important to their business. So to see all of these features being offered, all these products and services being offered, someone will look at that and think, oh, wow, I didn't even realize I could use that. I didn't even realize that's something that would be helpful to my business. So even just the presence of it alone, I think speaks a great deal to, what even a single person business is capable of in competing in the marketplace.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree that it would be helpful to go on their website and see how the different products speak with each other. And I think we also discussed maybe doing a webinar together and just show people how everything works smoothly together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there it is. That's what we were plotting and scheming about. So
I don't know if I revealed it too soon, but I couldn't help myself.
It's quite all right. The dam was going to break on my side at one point or another, so we're good to go. All right. So from your website, AfterShip service is broken into, I believe it's 5 parts. Maybe there's another part of the website that shows different areas of it. So you can certainly let me know what gaps I need to have filled. And also to our audience, I'm sorry, but drilling season has started up again. I'm gonna do my best to ignore it, but I just want to let you guys know. So there's visibility, branded tracking, shipment notifications, analytics, apps, and developers. And I would like to have you touch on each of them. And as we go, maybe we'll stop at each one if there's something particular I would want to ask about.
Absolutely, sure. So I think it's a good breakdown of our different services or benefits that AfterShip allows, right? So the The first element here is shipment visibility. And we want to help merchants be in control of their logistics and focus on selling more products, right? So the minute the logistics is handled, they can really focus on what is important, which is, growing their brand, their store, etc. And so we allow merchants to monitor all their orders in one dashboard. So if you're sending multiple orders at once, you can filter them by dates, by status, by couriers, and so on, to identify any potential shipping incident that might occur, such as delays due to weather conditions, for example. So that's one aspect of service. The second aspect is the branded tracking experience. So instead of sending customers to external pages and losing another important touch point with their customers, we allow merchants to send their customers back to the website with a tracking page that can be added to the store and provide merchants with more opportunity to upsell their brand and additional products, right? So users can add multiple tracking pages and easily edit and customize it. For example, you can adjust your brand voice, add recommended products to the page. You can customize the language and even add your Instagram account to it. So that's the second aspect of AfterShip. The third one is the shipment notifications, right? So I think we touched on it a bit earlier, but providing transparency is crucial for building a strong brand that customers are loyal to. So our automated notifications keep customers informed, right? We can send users an email or an SMS or even Facebook message whenever the order status changes, so they know at any point in time where their package is, and more importantly, when the package is going to be delivered, right? So these updates are another great opportunity for merchants to build trust and add more touch points to customer communications. And the last aspect of AfterShip is the analytics and our app integration. So in addition to the features that we just mentioned, we also leverage all that data that we collect to provide merchants with important insights to monetize optimize their logistics and post-purchase services, right? So for example, merchants can analyze the delivery rate, average shipping time, the best couriers to use, and just really analyze this data in order to optimize and make changes. And yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to actually tell you a little story, because I'm wondering if there's any experiences that might be familiar based on what you guys have, because I mean it's logistics at scale. So again, this is going back to the sales job that I had, and FedEx was our courier. And I tend to hesitate to throw other companies under the bus, but FedEx made my life hell for a year, so I'm going to throw them under the bus. And the customer was waiting for their product, and they were waiting, and they were waiting, and we were waiting. And I would say 1/8 of our job was calling FedEx, asking for updates. And depending on who we talked to, we would get different updates. We had one person let us know that the product actually disappeared entirely, and or another person I think said that it was stolen. And we were kind of like unfazed at this point. We just said, you know what, I'm just going to keep calling them back anyways. We'll throw the dice. And so we get somebody else who was quite good at their job, and they say, oh, no, your product is here. It's just held up in customs. And it's basically in a little cage right now. And we just need to get a form filled out. All of which is to say there was so much information that we had to keep prying in order to reveal, so that we can tell this to the customer, who of course wasn't really pleased about the news, but at least it was something. And I'm wondering if any situations like that have come up where, you're doing your best to be transparent, but it's actually the couriers who are maybe lacking in transparency on their side. So how have you been able to maintain sort of like a consistent level of visibility for your customers?
That's a nice question. Actually, I mean,
thank you.
One advantage here is that there is no human touch or human involvement in the process, right? So we rely solely on the powerful technology, which is the integrations that we have with all these different couriers. And one thing we do is we standardize all the different shipment statuses, right? Each courier has a different shipment status, and we take all the different statuses and standardize them. And once all this process happens without a human intervene, and then you basically, you get full transparency over where the package is actually at. And if you think about it, the fulfillment process nowadays is so complex. You have, first of all, the distance, right? Sometimes, or in a lot of cases, you ship from China over to the US, which is, a huge distance. It takes a lot of time, and there are so many different hands that the package moves from hand to hand. And if there is no sense of technology or automation in the process, it gets really messy, right? And you don't want humans to do that. So I think, to answer your question here, with the automation and the integration, it makes things very much more simpler. But of course, there are always incidents, and there are always specific incidents that occur, and you need to manage them. But I think if you look at the statistics and the larger scheme of things, then the automation really makes the logistics better. And eventually, again, as I said, you want merchants not to focus on handling the logistics. You want them to focus on building their brand and improving their product, etc. So I think that's very important.
Yeah, I to summarize the point, just so that I'm understanding it, is that it really comes down to there are times where the human touch is ideal. You want that to be in the marketing, you want that to be in the customer service. But when it comes to something as material as a product physically moving from one place to another, the human touch doesn't really make a difference. Somebody can maybe you still have people who are picking up, moving the boxes, but it's not like they have to write a song related to it or anything like that. It's very much a laborious position, and you can see this throughout all of history. Is that when something is, if something can be automized, it tends to be because you don't want humans to turn into machines. You want humans to do the kinds of jobs that human beings are meant to do.
Absolutely, and on top of that, relating to the nice story that you mentioned. When it comes to updating customers, right? Customer support, the entire automation process, and not having customer support agents to provide you the information and make the mistake that he might make because either he's new, he's tired, God knows what. It really, solves a lot of incidents that are just not meant to be an issue in the first place.
So one of the things stuck out to me, by the way, when you're talking about branded tracking, how the Instagram is integrated into that part of it. You mentioned it briefly, but it stuck out to me because, to me, Instagram comes across as it's very essential towards the beginning of the funnel. It's really more part of the marketing. So can you specify to me in what way Instagram becomes relevant and effective post-purchase? Or maybe I misunderstood, but I just wanted to clarify it.
No, for sure. I mean, it's a good point. So one main role that the track or a branded tracking page plays in the post-purchase experience is strengthening the brand itself, right? Creating brand loyalty, and just combining and having the option of adding Instagram, and the Instagram account really does a good job with that, right? So imagine two incidents. The first incident is when you're a customer and you want to look up your order, your package. You go to just a boring standard DHL or FedEx tracking page, and you get the information you need. Great. But in the other incident, you check out the branding page. You go back to the store that you got the product from. You go back to their website. You are interactive. You are in interaction with more products. You go to the tracking page, and the tracking page looks very much like the store. And part of that is images that can be found on Instagram, for example, right? So you have this whole branded experience that just at the end of the day really helps customers to relate to the brand, and at the end of the day, motivates them to just come back for more. So I think that's a good example.
Okay, this is going to get even more specific, but is it? Let's just say there were certain images on my Instagram that would be more particularly effective. Am I able to curate those images, or is it the main feed and it just happens to update on whatever's most recent?
Yeah, you can curate the images, and to go into the specifics of how to do it, it's more of I would say development work at this point, and we are constantly building on that features to make it even easier to do. But at the end of the day, you can choose the pictures that you want to have add to the tracking page.
Okay, I see. I can get very granular, although I wasn't always as granular. It over time, sort of understand these things. Okay,
with age.
With age, exactly. Yeah, I look in the mirror and I'm reminded of that constantly.
Tell me about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we mentioned, and I think this is a good time to ask this question because we didn't mention there's over 800 carriers. The number that I've written down is 881, so you come up on 900. I can seem pretty overwhelming to think about like which couriers I would want to use effectively. So, I mean, for one, I'm fascinated by how the team sets this up and sets up the relationships with the different couriers. It strikes me as this is more on like the automation side, but just I'm sure they already have their logistics set up. That's their job. But let's just say, for instance, that I'm setting up a store and I'm focusing on shipping to US and Canada, which is not hypothetical. That's actually what I'm doing. So what do I do exactly? Like, do I just pick and choose which couriers I think would best service the area? Do I just enable everybody and let them fight it out to see who ends up getting to ship the package?
Okay, so let me divide my answer into two. So first of all, we actually have a dedicated couriers team, right? So their whole focus is to manage existing integrations and explore new integrations to be made, right? So we combine both user requests with our own research to make sure we cover all the different couriers out there. However, a large portion of our user base is shipping in the US and Canada, as are you. And then you'd only have to set up the couriers that you're working with, right? Which for the most part also happens automatically by auto-detecting the order tracking number format of the courier, right? So if you go into the admin, you just choose the carriers that you're working with from the list in our admin. And then AfterShip will automatically detect the courier by the tracking number format. So it's that part is automated as well.
Okay. One other thing that I thought would be worthwhile of asking too is currently with my store, I do have a third party logistics. It's like the product that goes to their warehouse and they can ship it. And are there relationships with 3PLs, or is this more on parallel where this is more you're able to kind of handle the situation with or without one?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So apart from integrating with couriers, we also either integrate with the 3PLs or we partner with them. And since AfterShip has a unified API, we actually serve not only D2C brands, but we also serve other entities in the e-commerce, right? So we can provide our API to 3PLs, or we can also provide our API to e-commerce platforms, right? So for example, we have Amazon and Shopify and eBay, for instance, as our customers. And so all that works through our API.
Okay. Yeah. I was curious about that one too. All right. So I'm going to, not that everybody can see my list of questions, but I'm going back a couple of questions here. So we've touched on bits and pieces of this, but I wanted to make sure that we gave it a fair amount of attention, which is really about again, this is getting back into the overall theme of the post-purchase experience. And, luckily at this point, we've had the ability to talk about this, even on prior episodes. So the way I would want to frame the question to you is, and if you can even do case studies, that'd be great. But I know there's some sensitivity there with mentioning other companies, so I leave that to your discretion. But it really would have been the difference between the brands that have properly emphasized post-purchase versus the ones that don't. What lengths that they have to go to effectively use the post-purchase experience.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Thank you.
So I keep complimenting you on your question. So I think that
I got a chalkboard on my wall. I just every time somebody says it.
For sure. I hope to win this battle. So I think that brands that understand that there is more money to be made from acquired customers manage to grow their brand faster, right? So there are obvious reasons that connect customer satisfaction to their willingness to come back to buy more through upselling, for example. But then you also have elements that are not that obvious, right? Such as the impact your happy customers have on your marketing efforts. And happy customers are more likely to make referrals and leave reviews. And we all know how important customer reviews are to the online business these days. So from my past experience, I was able to see up close that the impact that user-generated content has for the growth of the brand. So that aspect is not that obvious, but I think it's very important and demonstrates the difference.
Yeah, and I can hammer this point home as often as I like, because it is just so important how each customer turns into an asset in one of two ways. They're either an asset for you or they're an asset against you. They have a bad experience. People love talking about them bad experiences. So they love to talk to their friends about it. I threw FedEx under the bus not too long ago in this episode. But conversely, people also like talking about positive experiences too. They like to have their own experiences validated by letting other people know about that. So each customer, especially in the user-generated content realm, they can turn into some of your best sales assets. It's something that even I'm learning on an episode-to-episode basis.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly the case. And you know what? If you add another layer to it, and you look at the cost of marketing these days for merchants, as the competition becomes more and more tightened, I think using your happy customers as your ambassadors becomes even more so important. And this goes all the way through the post-purchase user journey, I would say, right? So happy customers, referrals, providing a good post-purchase experience, they will all make your life easier when it comes to making your happy customers your marketers, basically.
And I think this is a great time to ask this next question too, which is about younger brands that are starting up. They don't have, maybe they haven't even had a sale yet. So what are some of the basic steps that you would recommend brands take to be in good shape when those first customers start rolling in?
Yeah, I think this very much relates to your last question in the sense that your customers are your marketers, right? And if you provide them with the right tools, they will deliver, meaning that you have to equip them with a sense of security to build trust. And the best way to do that is to offer transparency. And like we just demonstrated with order status updates, right? So being transparent and providing a good customer service. And once you've gained their trust, you can be much more comfortable with upselling and asking for reviews and referrals, for example. So just to put it into practice, I would set up personalized and event-based email flows and make sure I have good reviews and referral solution in place for starters. And then, as your brand grows organically, this becomes more and more powerful.
And actually, this was something that I wanted to touch on from the first question that I had asked you. Well, it's actually technically the second question I had asked you about some of the about the origin of the company, because you were saying that the founders, they were merchants themselves, correct? They were trying to run their own businesses, and I think that particular perspective can go a long way in influencing the DNA of the company. And I'm wondering if there was anything particular that they had, they had learned from their experience as merchants that had, aside from building the company altogether, if there was anything that really stuck out to them that they wanted to impart on people as they were growing and expanding the company.
Yeah, I mean, I think AfterShip as a company grew exactly from that point, right? From just being a merchant and just tracking down pain point that was obviously a pain point for so many other merchants, and just building a solution that, you know what, it was at the beginning, it wasn't meant to be a company or a startup. It was simply a hands-on solution for the store that they were managing. And I guess because it solves so many problems, it grew into what it is today. And so I think the sense of that, and the fact that they grew the company from being a merchant, is so helpful, and it's a part of our DNA. So, for example, we constantly seek for speaking with our users, right, and getting their feedback and understanding what they're going through. Obviously, the e-commerce state is not the same as it was 10 or 15 years ago, and things constantly keep growing and updating, and we need to be a part of it. And a big part of that is, just being in communicate, understand, hearing users out and understanding where their touch points is. And I think that is also a part of our roadmap, and just building on these new challenges that just come on, every now and then.
This would pop into my head. This is I almost can't help myself, but okay. So with the over 800 couriers, I don't actually know how many couriers there are in existence, but is there like a vetting or a certain requirement or expectations for couriers to be, let's say, worthy and trustworthy enough to be part of the service that you're offering?
I mean, the standard at the end of the day is if enough merchants use the carrier, and if they need a solution, right? So this is what is leading us, because again, we want to be a problem solver for our users, right? So if enough users use this specific courier, I guess it's trustworthy enough in order to, gain that popularity. And we just want to be able to cover all the dots. And I mean, 800 is a lot, but there are numerous couriers, and I can say that sometimes it gets, obviously for bigger countries, it gets more complicated. If within a country like Germany, for example, you have states, and in that states you have specific couriers that are really good and are popular among these regions. So you really want to be able to cover every single piece of land, so to speak.
Yeah, and one thing that it's occurred to me as you're describing this to me is that I think it also, if we allude back to my other question earlier about like if I wanted to ship to US and Canada, what I think is opening up a lot of a possibility here is just the amount of market expansion available, because with that many couriers, a lot of parts of the world are covered effectively. And I'm wondering if you've seen that, if you've seen brands realizing that now they actually have means. Well, maybe they've had it before, but it's a lot more effective now. So it's actually more worthwhile, where now they can actually maybe start shipping to places like Johannesburg, places that are still densely populated, but you just don't expect to service those areas because they don't come up on the conversation as often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely part of brands, and I can say that as for AfterShip, as we grew and we served bigger and bigger stores or brands, we also kind of grew along with our users, right? So if our brands grew and they had a need to ship to more, I would say, to more locations around the globe, we had to come up with the solutions to do that. So I think that our company kind of grew hand in hand with our most loyal users, which is, I think, a very interesting experience on its own.
Yeah, and you had mentioned with the large and larger brands, which transitions pretty well into the next question that I had ready for you. So this is a large scale issue that I like talking about on the program. It's this idea that you have, on the one hand, you have e-commerce brands, and on the other hand, you have brands, legacy brands, household brands, just companies that people have come to recognize, whether they see it in a store or it's delivered, or it just happens to be, I don't know, like here in Ontario, we have like Pizza. It's like it's basically like the government pizza chain at this point, and and people, they, the average consumer is, I think, much more akin to affiliating and associating and having an affinity for these brands because of their legacy. I mean, they have the advantage of being around for years, but that's not to say that it makes them immortal. If you look at a company like Walmart, for instance, they're in the fight for other lives right now because Amazon has made it much more difficult for them to be able to service the same amount of customers. And they're doing their best, and God bless them. But there are, there's old gods and there's new gods, to quote Neil Gaiman there for a second. And so I noticed, for instance, Harry's Razor is a prominent brand that you present on the website, and it's not even the most prominent one either. There are brands that are even more recognizable. So I'd like to hear about the difference that you've made for a brand like that. How a brand that is becoming more recognized, it's sponsored in podcasts, which is a pretty big it's a milestone, not the biggest milestone, but it's there. And I'd also like to hear about your opinion on the perception of e-commerce brands versus generalized ones, and what are some of the big jobs or some of the big tasks ahead in order to blend these two, which I think is what we really need for our economy going down the line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So generally speaking, I think e-commerce is one of the fastest growing industries, and as the entry barriers become smaller, with the improvement of technology and e-commerce platforms such as Shopify and AfterShip, making it easier to become an e-commerce brand, it also becomes more challenging to succeed, right? And you really need to stand out and go the extra mile, right? So in the case of Harry's, they've been with us since 2014, and we're grateful, obviously, to be a part of their success. The biggest challenge working with brands like Harry's and other brands that we support is supporting the international growth of the brand and allowing them to access new markets while still maintaining this high level of user experience and support, right? So with our wide spread of integrations with couriers all around the globe, we were able to provide the standardized level of order tracking across the globe, while centralizing the location and monitoring all the different shipments in one place, and providing that with analytics that they can use to optimize the fulfillment channels for each of the locations that they were shipping to. And so I think that that was a big challenge for us to help these brands that grow so fast to all these different places and locations around the globe, just to keep up. And I think it kind of relates to our last discussion point.
And this for our audience, just so if they're wondering why I came up with this particular, it reminded me of the conversation that I had previously with Paulina of GrowWave, which is one of the key issues with delivery is that getting unless drones take over, and then drones are just like they're solar powered and they just fly to and fro, which scares me, but we'll get there. When you have when products are being traveled by either by boat, by car, by plane, there is a line that needs to be crossed for this to be efficient. If a vehicle is delivering too few product, then they're spending too much money, too much on fuel, too much on car insurance. So you need to know that there are enough products to be delivered to make the business actually viable. And I think that's really one of the strengths here, is that by allowing such a great deal of consolidation, it gives smaller brands an advantage that most of the time larger brands only get access to because they've built up the capital for it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely right. So think about, the fact that, brands can negotiate with different couriers, not just different couriers, but manufacturers. They are no longer bound to one location. They are able to ship from anywhere around the world, which, at the end of the day, lowers the selling cost, right? Because if you can negotiate with so many different entities at once, you get better deals. And if you get better deals, then you save the money, and you just increase your profit at the end of the day. So I think that's definitely something that as part we are as part of the the global trend of e-commerce. I would say just make it easier to sell online, but it also on the other hand, it lowers the barrier of entrance and just creates more competition. So I think it won't stop there. And more and more stores and brands are being established as we speak, and just there are just more and more challenges ahead, and just more room for new solutions to come and solve problems at the end of the day. That's the beauty of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is an economics, a traditional question for agencies and services. It's about data aggregation. We've definitely, I think, answered this question in kind at different parts throughout the episode. So I'm going to be very specific with how I ask this. But have as a company, have you identified any patterns that are consistent with brands that have been able to, say, move from a free plan to an essentials plan, and then from essentials to the higher and higher up plans? Certain milestones that brands have been able to cross in order to be able to then move up to those other premium services.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So luckily, our plans and pricing are designed to fit all brands from small to enterprise, right? So we charge per shipment, and the requirement for more shipment usually comes hand to hand with upgrading plans. So I think that's an important point. And important to point out. However, I can say that there is a big correlation that we see in the data between different data points, right? So, for example, the number of email subscribers, the number of product reviews that are generated, the number of couriers that you support might be a good indicator for the growth of the brand. If that answers your question.
That actually, that now that does that answer the question? That's actually that's like more insightful than I thought I was going to get out of it. Because I think those are some pretty particular metrics that somebody could look at and say, okay, well, now the demand has increased to this point. Now I got to service this, using the more premium plan. So yeah, that's actually like it clicks a lot in my head. I've got you for a bit more time. I don't have you for too much more time because I know you're a busy fellow. And so first, I do actually, I'm always curious to hear about, your own personal story too. I'm a bit of an outlier because I know a lot of people on a lot of shows, they ask those kind of questions closer to the beginning. I tend to kind of want to wait till closer to the end, more for decompression. But I also just want to make sure, is there any other element to the business that you'd love to let our audience know about? Anything I missed, a stone I should have upturned?
No, I think it's pretty much covered. I think you did a really good job to just digging in and just really, putting it out there.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. One more for the chalkboard. So let me. I'd like to hear about what were you up to prior to e-commerce, and what skills had you been developing in your own in your own line of work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I've been in e-commerce for the past 5 years now, and I actually started at Yafo, which is based here in Tel Aviv, and we just finally we mentioned them a few times in this conversation. And after that, I spent 2 years at Lux before I joined AfterShip. And I think I'm really lucky, to have worked in such an innovated environment and companies, and now with AfterShip, obviously. And it really feels like I'm in the forefront of e-commerce, and I'm happy, to be in for the ride. And actually, before I entered e-commerce, I was a sales team lead, so I think we have something in common. And I was a sales team lead in a global e-learning company. And I think sales is an art at the end of the day, and it can be used in all different aspects of life, right? Not just in your career, but even if you're like negotiating rates of renting a flat or something like that. And plus, I've studied law and business in university, so I really want to believe some skills came out of the 4 years investment that I made there. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm almost afraid to ask you that question in case it ends up ripping off a bandage over an old wound. But did anything really stick out to you in your school experience? I know a lot of people that I ask that question, it's not the lessons so much as it's the people they met and the networking, and I guess more of like the work ethic that was instilled in them. So that tends to be a pretty consistent takeaway that a lot of people, including myself, by the way, from my own experience in school.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's hard to say that any of the the content that was that I learned really still is with me. I mean, to some degree it is, I guess. And I think not so much as the content, but more just developing a thought process and a state of mind. And obviously, I think just handling challenges that come with, going for a degree is also another skill set that you develop. You know, I think university and just getting a degree at this day and age is not what it used to be, obviously. And I think for the most part of it, it's a positive process that we're seeing. But I think there are certain elements that are still important, just having that goal and just being invested in it. And really, there are, I don't know if you can relate, but for me, there were a lot of ups and downs, just, dealing with these challenges. And I think that it's definitely something that people should experience, prior to just, starting their career. And I think there's enough time to start a career, right? I mean, you can always do that. So if you're interested in something, you want to learn it, and maybe it's worth investing and not just rushing in to start your career. But that's just me.
Yeah. I mean, just to touch on my own school experience very briefly. I mean, for me, the hard part was gaining the respect of other students. I come from a more of a performative background, so things can get very, very dramatic in a school when you have a lot of people who are all used to kind of being the center of attention. But what happened, by the end of it was a 2-year program, and by the end of it, I had pretty much everybody's respect, save for like one guy who was a basket case. He ended up knocking somebody up, and now he's just like, yeah, just things didn't go too well for him. But other than that, everybody, by sticking with it, it had given me enough time to show what I was capable of, that if I had given up early, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And then people would have been left with a very different impression of me. So committing to it in full not only gives you a chance to demonstrate your value to others, which can be useful down the line, it also gives a person the ability to demonstrate their value to themselves and to show what they are capable of under that kind of pressure.
Exactly right. And, whether or not you start a career or you become self-sufficient, you open an online store, there will be times where you have to just stick with it and you have to be committed, even though you really want to run for the hills, right? And I think that's a really good lesson to be learned, and if you learn that during university, that's a win.
One other very, very tiny point, because I know the clock is ticking super quick right now, but it's also good about like resistance training, because on one hand, like you do the work and you got to pay them to do the work. So to transition from that into a position where they're paying you to do that work, that's some good long-term conditioning. So that's just one other point that I want to make. So with that, I would love to hear two things. One, if you have any final words of wisdom, like a Chinese proverb you really like, feel free to share it. No pressure. And then let the audience know how they can get a hold of you and get a hold of your company.
Yeah. So actually, not that I have any, points of wisdom, up my sleeve, but um, one more thing I wanted to mention is that automizely and AfterShip are growing, and we are constantly looking for new talents, and there are a bunch of new roles that are now open. So for anyone who's listening and is interested and might joining me and the team, feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn. We can also add my email to that. Or they can just hop to the website and see what's open and what's interesting. So just another point I wanted to make.
Great. Yeah, and I haven't been able to make that point too often, but if a person isn't so sure about starting their own business yet, because it does come at a cost and it is a risk, joining an e-commerce company is a great way to understand how it works from that side of it. And I think that experience can be immeasurable depending on where they want to go from there. So that's definitely a worthwhile closer. So with that, Doron, it's been great to talk to you. Great to see you again. I certainly look forward to the next time that we can meet and chat. And I am going to let you on out of here. So to my audience, as always, it's a pleasure to be able to do this for all of you. And I hope that I have changed your perspective in some small way, in the same way that my perspective changes in some small way with each episode I get to do. So with that, all the best, take care, and we will check in soon.
I do like a lot of research before I go anywhere.
Hey, this is Joseph from ECOMMERCE. Just wanted to thank you for being here and for giving this content your time and attention. I hope you learned something. I can say with certainty, I have learned something with every episode that I have done, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. There's a couple of things you can do to help us out. If you want to check out the audio content, we are available on all major podcast platform distributors. And while you're there, give us a 5-star review. It helps a lot. And while you're here on YouTube, there's a lot of things you can do to help out as well. It's not going to take very long. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button for this episode, and hit the notification bell so when we have new content for you, it's going to be at your doorstep ASAP. Lastly, this podcast is created by Debutify, the best Shopify template available. It is 100% free for you to start, and it can change your life. It can make you so much more free than you are right now. So if this episode wasn't enough to convince you, I think a few more might do the trick. So have at it.